Wallhanger TV is brought to you by Elite Archery, respect the game. Reconics, see what you've been missing. Dead Downwind, it's not just luck. Antler King, bigger bucks, healthier deer. Gator Track Boats, making waves where the competition can't. Mossy Oak, it's not a passion, it's an obsession. Scott Archery, everyone's #1. Ozonics, in the field ozone generator. Ammo2go.com, your one-stop shop for all your ammo needs. Last week on Wallhanger, Dana's quest for a Kansas giant continued.
He just wasn't big enough to shoot.
Ranger and Uncle Chris hunted the October lull and finally caught up with an old Illinois buck the first week of November.
Here we've been hunting since 1st October.
Chad also hunted Illinois, but the bad luck continued for him and Dana.
Man, it can be grueling out there day after day.
They only hoped that Kentucky would turn over a new leaf. Chad hunted hard for a few days in Illinois.
Sometimes that lockdown, no matter what you do, you're just going to be fighting for a few days. But
with 0 sightings of any big bucks, and with the exception of Ranger's buck, it seemed that the rut wasn't on yet. The weather had turned off bad, so the crew decided it was time to hit the road.
As you can see, Team Wallhanger 0. Got a butt whooped. We'll probably be heading up, packing some junk and hitting on the road tomorrow to get to Kentucky. And we only got to kill 2 deer there in about 3 days, so we'll go ahead and do that, knock that out and come back here and kill a monster. So y'all stay tuned. Man, there's nothing I'd rather do than just camp out here in Illinois and try to fill my tag. I mean, I hate leaving a farm that you know is this good to go somewhere else, but where we're at, it just makes sense. And we're trying to get to Kentucky. We've got a couple bucks there, a big 8-point and a big 10 that we're trying to get killed, and gun season is not far off. Days like this, you hate to waste them, but we're gonna jump in the truck and gonna run to Kentucky and try to beat the weather, maybe hunt the season, but anything else, we're gonna try to get a good weekend there and maybe tag out on a couple bucks and swing back up here. They're still a couple days away from the rut here, and it's always a balance trying to figure all this out, but we're gonna give it a try. Hopefully, it's November the 5th now, so it's time to start laying some bucks down. Good thing some of our team members are doing good, because we're getting our butts whooped here lately, but it can all turn around on us, so hopefully we'll knock down some Kentucky bucks here pretty shortly.
Out yesterday evening. It's the first evening we've been able to get in the tree in Kentucky. This is a spot we wanted to come yesterday. It got rained out. This is actually our first time to hunt in here in this stand period this year. We've got some Reconics pigs of 2 or 3 real nice bucks on this farm that we're after. They've been feeding pretty good in this food plot that we've worked our butts off this summer to get going, so hopefully it all pays off. This rut's real close, so we see a lot of buck sign through here too, so if he comes out with them does, we'll be in good shape.
Unfortunately, the first evening back in Kentucky didn't pan out like Chad had hoped. Although deer activity was high, the bucks that he was looking for had remained unseen.
Man, we've done a lot of scouting, got a lot of pictures on this farm. We kind of know where these deer are at, and we were having some good hunts. We were seeing a lot of bucks, but the shooters that we're after, we just couldn't get up in daylight hours. Now, gun season is right around the corner, and we make a call, the conditions are right. We had a new set that was in the edge of some timber that we hadn't been able to get into. We knew this was a small block of timber where the big 8 was at, and we felt really good about our chances.
This segment has been brought to you by G5, designed to hunt, and by Advanced Tree Stands, engineered to advance your game. This segment is brought to you by Halo Rangefinders from Wild Game Innovations, never miss, and by Black Rack Rattling System, twice the sound with twice the rack, only from Flextone.
Well, good morning. It's our third or fourth day in Kentucky. We're on a brand new set this morning. It's actually in the woods off the edge of a cut cornfield. There's a lot of buck sign in here. These deer have been rutting, making a lot of sign off in there about where we're at. We've waited till now to slip in here for the weather to get right. It was cold this morning and foggy. That fog kind of gave us a cover walking in this morning, so we made it in without bumping anything. We're just waiting on a good buck to come through. It's the day before gun season opens here in Kentucky, so we're trying to get it done before gun season opens. That's a shooter buck chasing a doe out in the edge of the field. He's just a little too far out there to hear us. I just tried to grunt at him once, but we just need her to take him by the stands off.
Man, I'll tell you what, I really love this spot. We could see pretty good, but there was a couple pockets. You know, we had a big field edge to our left and a big road bed to our right. But right directly in front of us, we was not expecting this deer to come from here, and the woods are pretty thick. She hollered shooter, and when I looked, that deer just popped out of nowhere, and he's already like 25 yards, and he's cutting across, and he's fixing across this road bed. I recognize this deer right off. It's the big 8 we've been after, and he's fixing to come right across that lane. And the problem is, the deer is to my right, my bow is hanging to my left, so I have to actually stand up, spin, grab my bow, spin all the way around to my tree stand, turn back around, get drawn all at the same time while this buck's not stopping. He's not feeding, this deer is cruising. He's looking for does. I mean, there was a lot going on and a lot had to happen in a short amount of time, but we got spun around. I was scared of the buck even hearing us or seeing us move, but it gets spun around in time. I get drawn back just in time as this buck's fixing to step out of my shooting lane. I let the arrow fly and I could tell the deer jumped the string, but I wasn't quite sure what the shot looked like yet.
I don't think I made a good hit at all. We might have got lucky at the angle and got long. We just got to get down and take a look and see.
I didn't even take the time to review the footage. I wanted to get down and see what kind of sign we had down there. And when I got down and looked at the sign, I bow hunted for 18 years and I know what it looks like, and it didn't look good. So I came back up, looked at the footage, and we slow-moed it down. It was very obvious that deer jumped the string really hard, and we hit that deer real high on the shoulder. You know, and even though I felt like initially that we wasn't going to get that deer, you do what every responsible hunter is going to do. We devoted the rest of the day to finding him. To me, it was pretty obvious we didn't hit the deer, and there's nothing I hate worse, especially in a year like this where you're getting beat down, to where you have an opportunity as a bow hunter. You practice all summer long. You do everything you've got to do. You get the right equipment. And bow hunting is bow hunting, and you make a mistake and a deer fools around and gets away from you. There's no worse feeling in the world.
Man, it had been a long couple of weeks, and we finally get a crack at a good buck, and it just wasn't a good hit. We spent all day in the woods looking for the deer and just never found it. And as if our luck couldn't get any worse, we get back to the truck after dark and it won't start.
I'd say it's been a long day, to say the least. We're out here in the middle of this cut bean field, and now my battery's dead on my truck. Really? The truck won't crank? I mean, really? I guess I'll have to call old Woody, see if we can get him to come out here and pick us up. Man, it's been a bad luck day, but it's a good thing my buddy answered the phone, or we might still be in that bean field.
Despite the bad luck that seemed to be hanging over Chad and Dana, Chad knew he had to get back in the stand. And even though the Kentucky gun season opened the next morning, Chad planned on suiting up in his orange suit and tie.
It's opening morning of Kentucky's gun season, and we've probably only heard 50, 55 shots this morning. There's a lot of pressure in this area, so we're hoping for the best.
Man, all the gunshots. I'd heard about the Kentucky gun opener, but golly, man, I thought I was in Lizard Creek again.
I lost count of all the gunshots. I kind of felt bad for the deer.
Wallhanger TV is brought to you by the Buck Bomb. The Buck Bomb is a revolutionary scent dispersal system derived from natural, fresh ingredients. Spray it in short bursts or lock down the 5-ounce can for maximum coverage. Buck Bomb blows away traditional scents and attractants.
And we're out kind of late spring, early summer, looking for a place to put this new feeder. You know, we're trying something a little new this year. Wild Game's got a feeder they call the Power Driver. It's a really neat concept. We're actually going to set this thing up in the summer with minerals. This is the first feeder that I know of that's set up on an auger system that you can feed minerals, rice bran, any type of attractant you may want that's a brand style. Because usually your spread cast feeders or even your gravity feeders are clogged up, so it's a really neat concept, and I think it's going to really pay off to even set this thing up on minerals. That way these deer are consistent with it. We don't have to keep coming in here and hassling them. And with us traveling a lot, you know, we can set this up on a piece of property that we may not be back to for a few months. And basically the way this thing's set up, just like your normal feeder, it's got a 12-volt battery and a motor that runs this thing. It's got a timer, just like any of your other feeders are. Very simple. You hang this thing on a tree, fill it up with feed, set on a timer, you feed it whenever you want. The auger system drops it out. I can't think of a better way to keep the critters out of your feeder, keeps the moisture out of your feeder, and it allows you to feed different types of stuff that previously that I know of you were not able to put in a feeder. You were having to go out and dump it on the ground and hope for the best. So I think we got a pretty good spot right here where it's opened up a little. We're probably going to stick it on this tree and see what happens.
This segment is brought to you by Hunter Safety System. Saving lives is what we do. And by Outdoor Edge with the new Razor Light, the strongest replacement blade knife that never needs sharpening.
It's been really slow. 3, 4, 5 days, however long it's been. And deer movement is definitely slow, so when it's that slow, we come back and make pancakes and sausage.
Well, I know it seems kind of crazy, but even though we're on a couple good deer here in Kentucky, you can tell we're in short sleeve shirts, and between rifle season opening up and having these deer a little skittish, a lot of guys are in the woods this weekend, and between that, it being hot, the next 2 days here is going to be hot and raining, maybe even 3. The same fronts going through in Kansas already, so we're going to save about 2 days worth of hunting. We're going to shoot back west, run through the front, get back into Kansas on the back side of it for tomorrow, and get back in the tree. We've been hunting hard in Kansas. Dana's been after a couple good deer. We're going to try to slip back in there and knock one of them out, and hopefully get back to Kentucky by the middle end of the week when the weather's a little better. It's kind of a gamble anytime we're on the road trying to make the right decision and where to go. I just don't want to be sitting here for 2 days not be able to hunt, so we're going to drive just about all night and try to make it to Kansas. Y'all stay tuned. If there's one thing I hope y'all are getting out of this show is that how real we are when we're out in the woods. And look, we put in our time and we've got to hunt just as hard as the next guy or even harder. And it's never as easy as going sit in a tree and filling your tags. It's sometimes television makes it seem that way. But we put in a lot of time preseason, a lot of time summer, and look, we've got to deal with the same things everybody else deals with our neighbors, with the leases, with everything that happens. So, you know, even though sometimes, and like this year, it has been a very tough battle, we're having to grind it out and just hope that our luck changes.
Meanwhile, back at Uncle Chris's farm in Illinois, Chris had been back on the hot seat since Ranger had tagged his buck during the first week of November. The guys had yet to see a shooter, but knowing they were in the heart of the Midwest during sweet November, that surely a big buck would show up sooner or later.
guys, here we are. Man, the time's just clicking by. Ranger's got his buck. I still hadn't got mine. We've been hard at him. November the 13th. We've got back in here early this evening on one of our favorite spots back in the timber. It's pretty thick in here. Hopefully we can catch some of these bugs in here pushing these does around. Anyhow, stick with us. We'll see what we get here this afternoon.
Nothing panned out for Chris. Although he saw a couple of nice-looking bucks, they were too young. Crossbows have extended hunter seasons nationwide, and Barnett has been at the forefront of crossbow technology, coming out with new, innovative crossbows like the Ghost 410, the fastest crossbow that Barnett has ever made, and the Buck Commander Extreme, ultralight, weighing just 7.1 pounds. Barnett crossbow, faster, stronger, lighter, every year for over 50 years. This segment is brought to you by the amazing Luminoc. Light 'em up with Luminoc and always know where your arrow hits. Chad and Dana had made it to Kansas midday, but were having trouble making it to the stand.
I mean to tell you, this front had just hit. Once we hit the edge of the field, we probably only got about 80, maybe 100 yards to get to our tree stand, and it is almost impossible. There's deer everywhere, and all we're trying to do is slip in without blowing anything out.
We just got back to Kansas an hour and a half ago from Kentucky. Barely after lunch, we tried to get into our stand here, and there's bugs running a doe in here all over the place. It took us a while to get in here and get settled. I think it was going to be a good week in Kansas.
Man, I don't know what I've got to do to try to get Dana a deer. I mean, we're spending a lot of time in the woods. We're seeing a lot of deer. The weather's good. We just can't get a shooter on his feet. And it's really frustrating, and you start second guessing yourself and stand location and everything that you're doing. But the weather's right. We know they're here. We're just going to stay in Kansas and grind it out and hope to make it happen.
I'm telling you, I'm starting to get really frustrated. I don't think I've ever hunted this many days in a row and not seen a shooter buck. I mean, we have the perfect setups, the weather's right, so now we're just waiting on the right buck to show up, and it's just not happening.
Next week on Wallhanger, Dana's Kansas mission continues.
As tough as the hunting is, it can only get better. Frustration's starting to build a little bit.
Yeah, it's got to get better, right? So we thought.
Chad travels back to Kentucky in search of a big buck.
Boy, I love wearing me some hunter's orange.
We're back in Orange. It's our first evening in the stand.
And Cousin Don hunts Kansas.
The big deer are definitely up and moving.
Wallhanger TV has been brought to you by Elite Archery, Respect the Game, Reconics, See What You've Been Missing, Dead Downwind, It's Not Just Luck, Antler King, Bigger Bucks, Healthier Deer, Gator Track Boats, making waves where the competition can't. Mossy Oak, it's not a passion, it's an obsession. Scott Archery, everyone's #1. Ozonics, in the field ozone generator. Ammo2go.com, your one-stop shop for all your ammo needs. And these fine sponsors. For wall hanger gear, and more information about our sponsors and outfitters, log on to wallhangertv.com. For updates and giveaways, be sure to follow Wall Hanger TV on Facebook. Join us next week for more Wall Hanger TV with Chad and Dana Wall, right here on the Pursuit Channel.